Welcome back to 20 Life Learners. Our speaker for today is Fiona Nzau. She is a UCT Economics graduate currently doing her postgrad in law. Fiona is passionate about creating a better, more inclusive society that truly embraces diversity. After her own struggles in a world that tried to convince her that she was too fat to be beautiful and desirable, or even worthy of respect, she is now actively questioning the fat-phobic nature of our society. She questions society's obsession with size and who the body conscious movement is actually serving. In this presentation, she not only shares her honest and vulnerable story, but she shines a spotlight on our obsession with thinness. She will change your idea of what genuine self love and body liberation means forever.
Hi everyone. I guess most of you know me. I'm Fiona, and today my presentation is just going to be a bit about fat phobia and me and diet culture and sort of what I've learned over the last sort of year and a half, just trying to understand and learn more about body positivity. How did my journey start? So there were sort of things in my mind that so I've always been fat. Always been overweight, like for as long as I can remember. And I've always disliked that about my body and felt uncomfortable in my body. And I always sort of did things to try and change it. And whenever I failed to lose weight or mainly being failing to lose weight, it always felt like a reflection on me. And how poor like of a person I was and how I think sort of the normal imaging you get around fat people being like a gluttonous and not being able to control themselves. And I mean, I would always think like, why can I just not like be skinny? And I think also being at a predominantly white private school, also seeing the imaging of sort of the compliments and the praise that white girls would get in my school, and not having that as a black woman, and particularly as a fat black woman, it just sort of reinforced a lot of negative messaging that I had. So eventually, sort of last year, 2019, I did end up losing a bit of weight, and it was a pretty natural process for me. I was literally just training quite a bit. I'm into powerlifting and being at the gym. I'm a gym butt, guys. And sort of weight naturally came off. It's, I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't working towards it. It was something that just happened. But when that happened, I noticed how everyone's attitudes towards me started changing. And again, that started reinforcing a lot of the imaging I've had since. I think I remember going on a diet as young as like 12 years old. And from that time, the moment that I did lose weight and getting sort of that positive reinforcement back from other people, it made me think, well, clearly, this is like a positive thing. People are viewing it positively, but I don't feel as if I'm any happier in my body. So then I thought, like, surely this isn't how I should feel. So whether I'm fat, I'm unhappy. Whether I'm a little less fat, I'm unhappy. So I kind of felt a bit stuck. I didn't feel comfortable in my body, even if at the end of the day, I had done what I'd always wanted to do or always wanted to achieve. And so I started just like going on Twitter and going on Instagram and YouTube and just sort of reading more about body positivity, its roots. I found a page called The Body's Not an Apology. It's a website. And sort of, I was hearing things and reading things that were really resonating with me at the time. So I sort of started opening my mind to different resources, and I kind of realized that there are truths that I believe that, this is how things should be and this is how things are, that as I read more and understood more, really began to unravel. So things like the idea of no pain, no gain, like pushing yourself to the limits. To be healthy is to be skinny. If I lost weight, I'd be having a much better quality of life, not only health-wise, but also society-wise. And that food isn't really something you should be enjoying. Food is just nutrients, so you should be able to control that because you just need the nutrients that you have. So a lot of these ideas that I kind of had and had built up over many years started to subside. And I just wanted to share with you in this presentation some of the few things that I learned that really helped me sort of like break myself out of what society believes health and wellness and what your body should look like. Not that these are by any means an exhaustive list. I feel like I'm learning every single day, but I feel that by sharing it with you, hopefully it can start a conversation, and you guys can start to look at your world around you and how you view weights and size and all of that in a different way. So let's get there. So what have I learned? So the first thing is that health may not be wealth. I think we're all sort of conditioned to believe that being healthy is the best thing you can do. No one can ever take your health away from you. And to be healthy means to, be skinny, have abs, eat clean, whatever clean means. There's a sort of connotation around what is that healthiness. But I think as I've read more and understood more, that the idea of health is very westernized and it has a very specific look, and that type of health is not the only type of health that there is. And also, furthermore onto that, the idea that just because you're healthy, you deserve respect. But people who are unhealthy or may not be in that image of healthiness also deserve respect. It's what you deserve for being a human being. It's something very fundamental. It's something intrinsic to you, despite what you look like to the other, to the world, and how the world may perceive your health. So realizing that the idea of, and I think the problem is that the health industry is also such a massive industry. I think it's $7 billion or something ridiculous. So when all the imaging you're getting from gyms and Instagram and fit tummy teas, and that is a specific idea of what health is, it becomes very hard to break away from that. But I think starting to question what health is and what health looks like to me has been very important in me realizing that I'm not unhealthy because I'm fat. And even if I was unhealthy, there are still basic things that I, as a person, intrinsically should have, no matter what I look like. So that's the first one. And the second one is that the body positivity movement has been hijacked. So I think when I started sort of getting into body positivity, it was at the stage where it was sort of like a size 8, 10, 12 white woman sort of standing in a bikini and then scrunching their body up and being like, even me, I have rolls. You are perfect. And like the back shot of cellulite in the designer skirt, but I'm just like you. And then like the next post is like fit tummy tea or like gummy bears or something. So what I learned through the process is that the body positivity movement was started by Black women. And I think as often most movements are started by women of color, it took a very different turn. And I think what it became was bodies that are accepted in society and are valued in society, white female bodies, just took up space. And because that's what people want to see already, their voices got amplified over the people who are really marginalized in this. So fat Black women, people who are differently abled, I mean, that's who the body positivity movement was originally created for, was to, and I think it also became not that looks and desirability are trivial, but that's sort of what the body positivity movement became, of you still look beautiful, you still look this. But fundamentally, the body positivity movement was also targeted at things like access to healthcare, access to clothing, jobs, etc. So I think some of the essence of the movement was lost. And in my own personal journey, I'm trying to recover that and also learn that as a Black woman, they and not being the biggest woman out there, that I also hold some privilege in that, and that I should really be fighting for people who are way bigger than me and are much more marginalized than I am in this situation. So that's the second thing. Then the third thing is that food is not fuel. So I don't know if you guys have sort of seen on social media, there'll sometimes be a post that kind of floats around on Instagram that'll say, you're not a dog, why are you treating yourself with food? And the whole idea is that you should just be eating for nutrients. You're not like a dog, you're not primal, you can control your odors and stuff. But I think the reduction of food into fuel and nutrients isn't a realistic depiction of food. I think food is connected to memories, food is connected to experiences, food is connected to taste and experiment in that. And I think often when you sort of embark on a fitness journey, you'll often see that people's food will become very bland, very just you're getting what you need to get. But I don't think that's the essence of food, and I think um, it's oversimplifying it to say, well, if food is just nutrients, why can't you eat within a particular caloric range? Why can't you lose weight? You're the failure. But I think taking into account that food is not just calories, food is not just nutrients, and it means a lot more to people, then that kind of shows you why. I think there's a stat that I think 70% of diets fail. So who's at fault, diets or the people? And I think that kind of sums it up quite well. We're always trying to restrict our eating, we're always trying to change our eating to be more efficient. But at the end of the day, food is something to be enjoyed. And I don't think that living a healthy lifestyle where you're so restricted in food is healthy at all. And I also think there's, as I've been reading, there's things like intermittent fasting, keto diets are in some way a type of disordered eating. I mean, why are you sort of squishing all your eating into a few hours? Why are you cutting out massive food groups? And we're kind of getting this marketing of disordered eating types, and we kind of take it as, well, if it's not anorexia and it's not bulimia or something along those lines, that we should just continue. I mean, this is clearly the right thing to do, but cutting out entire food groups, restricting your eating so much isn't necessarily healthy. And I think it may be healthy for the body, but it's definitely not good for mental health. There's a really good documentary on Netflix called Unwell, and they speak about fasting in one of the episodes, and it's quite an interesting one to watch. I watched it 2 weeks ago, and it kind of explores how we often ignore the mental health aspects around sort of extreme dieting. So the fourth thing I learned, to probably the most important thing, is that there's nothing wrong with being fat. So I've been fat my whole life. I literally have to look back at pictures from when I was like 4 or 5 to be like normal size. And I've always felt like there was something wrong with me, like I was the problem. Why couldn't I control my eating? I mean, my mom used to buy tons of glamour magazines, and they'd always have some of the eating plans in the middle. And at like a really young age, like 11, 12, I would be following them to be like, okay, let's lose 3 stone in 4 weeks. Like me Googling 3 stone into kilograms in grade 5. But I mean, I've never felt that my body was okay, and I've never been comfortable in it. And it took sort of understanding that whether I'm lose a bit of weight, as I had last year, whether I gain weight, there's something I need to deal with that is unrelated to size. It's unrelated to being fat. And that my fatness isn't a marker of you're a failure, you're a bad person. It's just a state of being. It's just what I weigh. And I mean, through therapy, I've been working through sort of those feelings towards my body. And I think one of the things I have discussed with my therapist, and I would like to share with you guys, is this idea of sort of desirability. So often, I think when you don't have a strong sense of self, I know that's the case with me, I often absorb what other people think or say or act towards me and reflect that back as how I value myself. So being fat and not being desirable has always reflected back on, well, no one else finds me desirable. Clearly, I'm not a desirable person. And I think desirable doesn't just mean, in a sexual or romantic way. I can think people wanting you on their team, people wanting you in their job. Do you fit the image of certain brands? I mean, it's about, are you represented in the media? Are you represented in films and all that stuff? So when you're not getting that imaging of seeing people like you doing things that you want to do, it becomes very difficult to then build up a positive self-image. So now that I'm trying to break down that sort of desirability and how my fatness plays into my value, it's been a long journey. I'm definitely nowhere like close to sort of ending it. I don't think it does end, but I think when you watch this presentation, I think that's what you need to remember is there's nothing wrong with your size. You're not at fault. You're not a bad person. It's just the size you are, and it's how society perceives your size that is wrong, and not your size itself. And the last thing, which also links to what I've just been talking about, is that I do not have to live to be desirable. So as I said earlier, when I personally have a sort of a warped sense of self that is often created by the reflections of what other people believe me to be. And I think desirability has been a way of creating that worth, as I said. So, and I think it is we can acknowledge that being attractive makes life easier. It's nice to be attractive. It's nice to see yourself represented. It's nice to see yourself, you know, getting things just because of the way you look. But I have to look past that and have to be. I have to say that, you know, maybe I'm not desirable in mainstream media and that, but I can be desirable to myself. So I can be the kind of person that I want to be. And that can be completely physical. I think a lot of the times people's sort of self-love journeys always focus on the emotional, which I think is very important. But I think also in if you feel good about how you look, um, that's great. And I feel like everyone should have the opportunity. But what I don't agree with is what looking good is, which is pretty standard, I think pretty westernized. It's pretty skinny as well. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Those are the 5 things I've learned. And I'd really like to discuss with you guys just how you think about fat people, because I think in my learnings as well, that fat people are viewed in a very specific way by society, and by trying to actively thinking about the way you think about fat people and actively thinking about the way that people are perceived, you can start to not think that way and break down some of those um, conceptions that you have.
Thank you to this week's Life Learner. Please stay tuned for our next video.